Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Alrighty, another television program from radio. And yes, the radio version premiered slightly after the television version. My-Little-Margie, starring Gale Storm and Charles Farrell. It aired on CBS and NBC television from 1952 to 1955. It aired over CBS radio from December 1952 to August of 1955. The CBS version and the radio version sponsored by them nasty cancer sticks, Philip Morris cigarettes, but this is the only time I will mention that. At least I hope so. All right, let's go on here. My Little Margie, in a radio episode that was originally broadcast December 12th, 1954.
My Little Margie, starring Gale Storm and Charles Farrell. Transcribed in Hollywood.
It's early afternoon in the Albright apartment, but Margie's father, Vern, is just getting up to have breakfast.
Good morning, Margie.
Hey, what's with the Chinese? All I said was good morning.
I know. The only place it's morning right now is in China.
Oh, I can't help it. I was out late last night. I went to an art gallery.
Since when is a burlesque show an art gallery?
Well, they had it in the gallery, and it was run by a guy named Art.
Dad, don't you think you're living it up too strenuously? You've been out every night this week, and 2 nights ago you didn't come home until 3.
Well, I was out with the boys.
You were out with some woman, and I know just the type you'd pick. Probably some beautiful blonde, the type who uses heavy perfume and has a come-hither look in her eyes. I know the type, all right.
Never mind the type. What's your phone number?
Dad, I know you're a wolf, but aren't you getting a little too old for the pack?
Well, heck no. There's lots of gray wolves running around.
If you keep this up, you won't even be able to crawl around. No kidding, Dad. I'm worried about you. Now, please slow down. Otherwise, you'll wind up an old man.
Oh, you can't wind up an old man. They don't have any springs.
Dad, be serious.
I am, Margie. You only live once, and I'm going to make the most of it. Pass the toast, please.
Here. Come in.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, hello, Freddie.
Oh, Mr. Albright. Mr. Albright, will you please stop reading that newspaper? Why don't you look at me?
Please, not while I'm eating.
Margie, I came up to tell you something very important. For years, I worshipped you from afar. But now I've decided that I'm not good enough for you. I'm not good enough because I haven't made anything of myself yet. I really haven't got a decent career.
That's true.
You know, I could have been successful in a profession which requires an expert knowledge of buildings, highways, and streets.
An engineer?
No, a taxi driver. Look at the crummy little office job I have now. I can't even get along on the salary. If I could just get a little raise so I could make ends meet.
Well, why don't you give up some of the luxuries?
You mean like bread?
In other words, Freddie, you're giving up the idea of marrying Margie until you've made a place for yourself?
Oh, that's right. Well, I got it off my chest, and now I'll be going. See you later, Margie.
Dad, pass the coffee.
Here. You know something? I like that boy.
What do you mean you like him?
Well, that's right, I do. That boy has a lot of good qualities about him. I know I tease him and pick on him a lot, but I've never really meant the things I've said about him.
Well, that's very nice of you.
You know, when the time comes for you to marry, you could do a lot worse than marry Freddie Wilson.
What? Me marry Freddie? But I don't love him.
Well, you could try to.
Dad, love isn't like a tight shoe that you could force your foot into.
I don't know why it isn't. Lots of married couples give each other the boot.
You're absolutely
And I've done my share of kicking around.
Mrs. Odette, have you been eavesdropping on us?
Why should I make your apartment an exception? Talking about married couples, did you hear the latest from apartment 9C? Mr. Jordan separated from his wife.
When did the separation from his wife begin?
Well, she fired at him 5 times. He started separating on the first shot. By the 5th shot, he had completely separated.
Well, that's a shame. They've been married such a short time, too.
Oh, I knew the honeymoon was over.
How could you tell?
The dog brought him his slippers, and his wife barked at him.
Listen, is that all you two girls have to do is gossip about other people?
No. As a matter of fact, Mrs. Odette and I are going shopping right now. And afterwards, we're having tea in her apartment.
What are you going to do, Mr. Albright?
Oh, nothing this afternoon, but this evening I have a date on the corner of Broadway and 42nd Street at 8 o'clock.
Who with?
Well, how do I know who's going to be on the corner of Broadway and 42nd Street at 8 o'clock? Come in.
Oh, all right. How are you?
Oh, just fine, Mr. Honeywell. Glad you dropped in. How are you?
Oh, terrible. As you know, my hobby is raising flowers. Well, I'm having trouble in my hothouse.
What's the matter? Did your daffodil go daffy, or did your crocus croak?
All right, that's not funny.
Oh. Yes, boss.
As a matter of fact, I'm having serious trouble with one of my favorite gardenias, the one called Vern Albright.
Oh, you named it after me.
Yes, because it's such a droopy little thing. Well, Vern is a sick flower, a mighty sick flower.
Oh, how sick can a flower get?
Well, I'll tell you how bad it is. The bees are taking pollen from the other plants and putting it back on Vern.
Sounds pretty bad.
Oh, it is. That poor little gardenia. I stayed up with it all night.
Why don't you call it an expert?
Well, that's what I did today. That's why I feel so depressed, all right? I talked to a nursery specialist. First, he took the gardenia's temperature. Then he felt its pulse. Then he opened the petals wide and looked down into the stem to see if it had tonsils. And then came the verdict.
What was it?
That plant has only 30 days left to live. Think of it, 30 days. Only 30 days left on Earth. And then it goes to that faraway nursery up in the sky, free, happy, never more to be bothered by ants, aphids, worms, or gophers.
Dear Mr. Honeywell.
Now, what would you do if you had 30 days to live?
Oh, there's lots of things I'd like to do.
Oh.
I'd like to see all the best Broadway shows, go out with some beautiful girls, attend a lot of parties with my best friends.
Is that all you want to do with 30 days to live?
Oh, there's a lot more, but one of the things I'd like to do is walk into your office and tell you to go to Blazers.
It wouldn't bother me any.
It wouldn't?
Heck no. With 30 days to live, you'll go to Blazers before I will.
Nice to be home. I can hardly wait to sit down. My feet are killing me.
Well, my apartment is right down the hall. We'll be there in a jiffy. Ooh, here's apartment 10D. Let's listen a minute and see if the Browns are still squabbling. Yes, they're still at it. Boy, she's really telling him off. Here's your apartment. I wonder what's going on in there.
Well, probably not very...
I'm interested. What other things would you like to do?
Sounds like Mr. Honeywell is in there with Dad.
Shh. I want to hear.
Well, the things I mentioned aren't too important, I guess, but with 30 days to live, there is one thing I'd really like to see.
30 days to live?
This is really the most important thing. With 30 days left to me on Earth, I'd like to see my daughter Margie happily married. Then I'd know my job was well done.
Oh, Mrs. Odette, Dad has only 30 days to live. Now I know why he's been living it up lately. He knows he's doomed. Why, just a few hours ago he said, Margie, you live only once, and I'm going to make the most of it. Oh, that explains so many things.
Well, I'm glad you're being philosophical about it, Margie. My third husband, Caspar, used to be philosophical about life. He used to say life was an everlasting struggle to keep money coming in and teeth and hair from coming out.
Mrs. Odette, I want to make Dad's last 30 days on Earth the happiest of his life. But what can I do?
Well, he mentioned something about wanting to see you married.
Yeah, that's right, married. But who can I marry? I'm not in love with anybody. Oh, I know.
You fell in love that fast? Without even meeting the guy? Boy, you're worse than I am.
Freddie Wilson. Dad was hinting at it today. That's who he wants me to marry.
Freddie Wilson?
Yeah.
Oh, no. You'd be better off if you could trade places with your father.
But that's his choice. I know it. Okay, I'll marry Freddie, just to make Dad happy. But Freddie said he wasn't going to marry me until he became successful.
What are you going to do?
Well, there's only one way out. I'll have to propose to him.
December 12th, 1954, My Little Margie on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of My Little Margie, December 12th, 1954.
And now back to My Little Margie. Well, due to a misunderstanding, Margie's under the horrible impression that her father has only 30 days to live, but doesn't want her to know it. She's determined to make his last days happy ones by marrying Freddie. While waiting for Freddie to come over, she tries to get her father out of the apartment for the evening.
Dad, why don't you go out tonight? Go to a show, a nightclub, dance, have fun, live it up.
Oh, thanks, baby, but I think I'll stay home tonight.
Why?
Oh, I'm half dead.
Already?
I'm tired from last night.
I want you to go out tonight. Freddie's coming over, and I kind of wanted to be alone with him.
Well, why didn't you say so? Okay, I'll go out.
Oh, Dad, you're an angel. Uh-oh. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, that reminds me. I think I'll drop over to the club. Professor Johnny Waters is going to be there tonight.
Who's he?
A famous musician. He promised to give me a few lessons on the harp.
The harp?
I'll be glad when you're dead, you rascal, you.
Mrs. Odette.
Oh, excuse me.
Well, see you later, Margie.
If you're going out, Mr. Albright, you better wear an overcoat. It's cold.
Oh, I'm getting tired of this cold weather. If I can arrange it next month, I'm going to a warmer climate.
Well, if he does go to a warmer climate, I'd like to give him a message from my fourth husband.
Poor Dad.
Did you call Freddie?
Mm-hmm. He's on his way over.
Oh, Margie, I hope you're doing the right thing.
Well, if marrying Freddie will make Dad's last days happy ones, I'm going through with it.
I guess you're right. Does Freddie know why you want to see him?
No, I didn't tell him on the phone. And I don't mind telling you that I'm kind of nervous about proposing. I wish he'd propose to me.
When it comes to proposing, men are like corks.
Corks?
Yes. Some will pop the question, while others have to be drawn out.
Oh, that must be him. Come in.
Hi, Margie, Mrs. Odette.
Hi.
Hello, Freddie.
Well, I'll run along and leave you two lovebirds.
Lovebirds? Margie, what's she mean by that?
Well, Freddie, sit down on the couch next to me.
Okay.
Move closer.
Okay.
Closer.
Okay.
Closer. You passed me.
I was just carried away.
Put your arm around me.
Like this?
Mm-hmm. Freddie, what do you think I'd do if you tried to kiss me?
I don't know.
Aren't you even curious?
Margie, I don't understand this. You're acting awfully strange.
Strange? Strange because I think you're the handsomest man in the world?
Who, me?
And the most charming.
Who, me?
And the smartest.
Who, me?
Marry me.
Hoo-ha!
Oh, Freddie, say you love me. Say it.
You love me.
Oh, Freddie, marry me. Make me happy.
Make up your mind. Which do you want me to do?
Don't you want to marry me?
Gee, Margie, I never thought I'd see the day when you'd propose to good-for-nothing me.
Do you accept?
Well, I've got to think it over. I accept.
Good. We're engaged.
When do I get my engagement ring?
You're supposed to give me an engagement ring.
But you did the proposing.
All right, we won't argue. Here's my class ring.
Slip it on my finger. I'm blushing already.
We must get married right away.
Well, before we get married, Margie, there's something I'd better get off my chest.
Well, what is it?
A tattooed picture of a hula dancer.
Dad should be home any minute, Freddie. Now, as soon as he comes in, break the news to him.
Hi, kids.
Hello, Mr. Albright.
Hi, Dad.
I just had a close call down in the lobby.
Well, what happened?
Well, the porter was mopping the floor. There was a pail of water in the middle of the floor. I didn't see it, and I almost kicked the bucket.
Freddie, go on, tell him.
Mr. Albright, I have something very important to tell you.
Very important? What?
Well,
So far, it's very dull. Come on, what is it?
Mr. Albright, I've been going with Margie for 3 years.
Well, what do you want, a pension?
Dad, Freddie asked me to marry him.
I did? I did.
Well. Congratulations, my boy.
Then you approve?
Of course, Margie, as long as you'll be happy. Now, the way I feel about it, I'm not losing a daughter. I'm gaining a son-in-law. But somehow, when I look at Freddie, it doesn't come out even.
I know it's going to make you happy, Dad, and we want to get married right away.
Anything you say.
And, Dad, I'd like a simple ceremony here at the apartment.
All right, I'll get my good friend Judge Eb Shaw to marry you.
And I'll be the bridesmaid.
Oh, would you, Mrs. Odette?
Oh, I'd love to. I've never been one before. Always a bride, but never a bridesmaid.
Now, why don't you two girls excuse us so Freddie and I can have a man-to-man talk?
Well, come over to my apartment, Margie. I'll help you plan your wedding gown.
All right.
You know, Mr. Albright, Margie's a very fortunate girl to get a guy like me. I could have married any girl I pleased.
Well, why didn't you?
I guess I never pleased any. But now that I'm going to marry Margie, I'll forget all about other girls.
Well, you'd better. Now, let's get down to basics. Do you think that you can support Margie?
Oh, I'm not worried about being able to support her. My big worry right now is, where am I going to dig up the $2 for the license?
Here, be my guest.
Oh, thanks, future father-in-law.
But don't depend on me to take care of you forever.
Yes, sir.
Now, a long time ago, I promised Margie her own home for a wedding present, so you'll have a place to live.
What are you going to give me for a wedding present?
A copy of the want ads and a mirror.
Copy of the want ads and a mirror?
Yes, you can either look for a job or watch yourself starve to death. Oh, good morning, Mr. Honeywell.
Good morning, Albright.
You look tired.
Oh, I am. I almost didn't come down to the office today. I sat up all night with that sick gardenia.
How is it?
Wilting fast. 4 petals during the night. I sent for a specialist from California.
Too bad. By the way, I hope you're going to attend Margie's wedding tomorrow.
Oh, I'll try to make it. It all depends on what time that specialist gets in. Albright, you don't seem to be very happy about this marriage.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not. But if this is what Margie wants, well, I'm not going to interfere.
Well, there's nothing you can do about it now. This time tomorrow, they'll be married, for better or worse.
Yeah, Freddie couldn't do better, and Margie couldn't do worse.
Yeah, that's an oldie but a goodie. December 12th, 1954, My Little Margie. The conclusion follows these words on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of the radio version of My Little Margie, December 12th, 1954.
Oh, well, now stop worrying about it. Freddie will turn out all right. With the responsibility of a wife, he'll go out and make something of himself. He'll get ahead.
Believe me, he could use a head.
Well, one thing is certain, he'll never mistreat Margie. He's got character. You can see it in his eyes.
If he ever does mistreat us, so help me, I'll blacken his character.
Oh, Margie, you look beautiful. You're going to be the prettiest bride of the season.
Thanks, Mrs. Odette.
You don't sound very happy.
I'm not. I really don't want to marry Freddie. I'm only doing it to make Dad's last days on Earth happy ones.
I understand you, poor kid.
Well, doesn't the bride look beautiful?
Hello, Dad.
Margie, Mrs. Odette, this is Judge Ebshaw.
How do you do, Judge?
Where is the groom?
Oh, he should be here any minute, Judge.
I'd like to get this marriage ceremony over with as quickly as possible. I'm due in court. I have to listen to a divorce case.
The judge gets them coming and going.
Oh, I thought I recognized you, Judge. Don't you remember me? Florence Odette versus Newbold Odette.
Oh, yes. $200 a month alimony and custody of the Cocker Spaniel.
That must be the groom now.
I think I'll go in the other room and fix my makeup. Excuse me.
I'll go with you.
Well, Mr. Albright.
Hello, Freddie. This is Judge Shaw.
How do you do, Freddie?
Judge? The judge is going to marry you.
Oh.
You don't seem to be very enthusiastic.
Hello, Freddie.
Hello, Margie.
You make a handsome groom.
You make a beautiful bride.
Well, Judge, shall we start?
Yes. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here on this joyous occasion.
Mrs. Odette, please.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here on this joyous occasion.
Mrs. Odette, what are you crying for? You're not getting married.
That's why I'm crying.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here on this joyous occasion to witness the marriage of Margie Albright to Freddie Wilson.
Albright, I've got great news.
What is it, Mr. Honeywell?
I just left the specialist. Vern Albright is not going to die.
The specialist? What specialist?
The horticultural specialist that Mr. Honeywell called in to see if he could save his favorite gardenia.
The one I named after your father.
It was going to die in 30 days.
Then it wasn't you who was going to die in 30 days?
Why, of course not.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to...
Stop! So you see, Dad, I thought it would make you very happy if I married Freddie. That's why I was ready to go through with it.
Gosh, Mr. Honeywell arrived in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Another minute and I'd have had Freddie for a son-in-law.
Freddie was just as happy to call it off, too. He said the other day he didn't want to get married yet. At least he's honest about things. He's not two-faced.
I agree he's not two-faced. If he was, he'd wear the other one.
Yes, sir, that's my pop.
And that's my little Margie.
Little Margie stars Gale Storm and Charles Farrell and is based on characters created by Frank Fox and produced, directed, and transcribed by Gordon T. Hughes for Hal Roach Jr. and Roland Reed. My Little Margie is written by Lee Carson and Jack Harvey. Verna Felton is Mrs. Odette, and Gil Stratton Jr. is Freddie. Will Wright is Mr. Honeywell, and Herb Butterfield played the judge. I'm Roy Rose.
December 12th, 1954, My Little Margie on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we start a brand new Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story. This one is the Lansing Fraud Matter. A man with a $50,000 insurance policy dies of malnutrition. This episode originally broadcast December 12th, 1955.
From Hollywood, it's time now for
Johnny Dollar. Hi, kiddo. Carter at Universal Adjustment.
Jim, how are you?
In a rush. I have to catch a plane to Tucson, Arizona.
Lucky you. Nice there this time of year.
No, listen. One of our brokers out there wrote a $50,000 straight life policy on a man named James Lansing. Lansing dropped dead 2 days ago.
Uh-huh.
And you'll never guess why.
I'll bite. Why?
Mr. Lansing starved to death.
What? With a $50,000?
Honest. He died of malnutrition. Got the coroner's report from Tucson right in my hand.
Well, if a man could buy a $50,000 policy, he ought to be able to buy himself a square meal.
Yeah. Johnny, Flight 203 leaves at 10:45. You interested?
See you at the airport, Jim.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account, submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Universal Adjustment Bureau, Home Office, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Lansing fraud. Expense account item 1, $178.13. Cost of plane ticket, Hartford to Tucson. I shaved, showered, packed, and got out to the airport in time to have breakfast there. Jim Carter found me at the cashier's cage.
Hey, kiddo, you won't need a coat out there in that desert country.
As usual, Jim Carter was bigger than I thought. A man who stands 6'5" always is. A little ruddier, a little more blustery, but as efficient as ever.
I wrote a special delivery airmail to the Insurance Commission in Arizona this morning and explained it worldwide. They wrote the policy. We're holding up payment pending investigation.
Well, you could have told them that in person. We'll be out there as soon as the letter.
Well, I like to be formal on these things, especially with the State Commission. Besides, I just as soon let them think we'll get around to a routine investigation later in a week or two.
In other words, you didn't tell anybody we're coming.
No, I didn't. Maybe we can work it better this way. The faster we move in and find out what's what and aren't bothered by anybody, the better off we'll be. Hey, give me your ticket, will you, Jim?
Yeah, sure.
Here you are, pal.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Johnny, that commission is going to get formal sooner or later and ask a lot of questions. Mainly, why doesn't Worldwide honor the claim and pay off the beneficiary? So we'll have to skedaddle and get ourselves some good answers for him.
Yeah, sir.
Hey.
You may board the plane.
Yeah. Thanks, pal.
Has anybody asked that question yet?
Well, the beneficiary, sure. James Lansing's sister, named Arlene Kennedy. She called the broker, and he referred her to Claims Division at Worldwide, and she called them long distance, and then they called me. I told them to put her off for a while, telling her it was just routine.
I see. Is she going to be tough?
Yeah, she could be, Johnny. I understand she has money of her own, and she has some influence in and around Tucson.
Oh, a lot of money?
Yeah, and trust. She's very comfortably fixed. Hey, watch yourself, kiddo. Yes, Mrs. Kennedy's pretty upset by the whole business. Can't blame her for that. James Lansing died on the street with no identification on him. By the time police found out who he was, a routine PM had already been performed to determine cause. You know, the county was going to bury this guy.
With $50,000 worth of insurance?
Yeah. Imagine that. Oh, excuse me, lady. Yeah, the postmortem never had happened unless Lansing dropped dead on a public street.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So I requested the coroner's office in Tucson to hold the body until we can get something done.
Better fix your seatbelt, Jim.
Oh, yeah. First thing that occurred to me when I saw the PM findings was that it might not be James Lansing at all. Chronic heart condition, lung history, debility.
Doesn't sound like anybody worldwide would insure. Lansing took a physical before the policy was issued, didn't he?
Of course he did.
See, have you got any material on his insurance examination?
Sure. Right here. Standard form. James Lansing was 100% okay when the policy was issued a couple of years ago.
Malnutrition, lung history, chronic heart. Hey, how could he get in that bad shape in 2 years?
That's a pretty good question, Johnny. I bet the answer is going to be great.
Yeah. What's the examining physician's name?
Let me see. Examining. Oh, here. Dr. Carl Mayhood, Suite 932, Valley National Building, Tucson. He's our first job, Johnny. Hey, cute stewardess.
Yeah.
Well, back to business, kiddo.
It was a long trip, and I spent most of it going over the material in Jim Carter's briefcase. By the time we circled Tucson Airport at 4:45 in the afternoon, I had the facts pretty well in mind. Expense account item 2, $350, cab fare, Tucson Airport to the Pioneer Hotel. Jim Carter and I took adjoining rooms. I unpacked my clothes and got on the phone. A Sergeant Younger, Tucson Police, had made the DOA report on James Lansing. Yes, he was in. Yes, he'd be glad to talk to me. I left Jim Carter contacting the State Medical Board.
Glad to meet you, Mr. Dollar. How do you like Tucson?
Well, I've been here 2 hours, Sergeant. Weather's certainly nice.
About like this all through the winter months. It's a little warm in the summer, though. Yes, sir. This Lansing matter.
Yeah.
There isn't really much to tell you, Mr. Dollar. One of the cars answered the call. A man was found dead in the doorway of a jewelry store about 4 blocks down the street.
Uh-huh. This was day before yesterday, Sergeant?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I went down to the scene and called the coroner's office. No identification on him, so we started to check him out. Took us a little while. By the time we got a make on him, the coroner had already performed an autopsy.
Yeah, I understood that was about the way it was. Say, tell me, how did you identify him as Lansing?
One of his prints matched up on our cards here. Lansing was booked on a traffic beef a year ago. Otherwise, we'd still be trying to make him.
You're sure it's Lansing over in the morgue?
Yeah, we're sure. His sister came down, identified him. Name of Kennedy.
Yes. Well, what did Mrs. Kennedy have to say about the cause of death?
Nothing.
That malnutrition bit didn't do a thing for her, huh?
Not a thing, no, sir. We all thought Lansing was some sort of a transient. You know, just some old bum until we identified him.
Uh-huh. Any witnesses see him die?
No, we haven't found any. According to the coroner, he'd been dead an hour or so before anybody noticed him at all. Happened early in the morning.
I see. Say, did Lansing have any other business down here other than that traffic violation?
Nope.
All right. Who do I have to see to get into the morgue?
Well, I'll phone the coroner for you. Won't be any trouble there. You want to go over now?
No, later on, maybe.
Dollar.
Yeah?
Death was from natural causes. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Then no matter how much you investigate, you people are going to have to pay off. Well, aren't you?
Maybe. We just have to be sure of one thing.
What's that?
That we insured the right man. By the time I finished with Sergeant Younger, it was 6 o'clock. I phoned the hotel, and Jim Carter, busy and efficient as always, had already gotten the vital statistics on Dr. Carl Mayhood. Northwestern University Medical School, 1940. Army Medical Corps, 1941 to 45. Dr. Mayhood's license to practice medicine in Arizona was issued in June of 1946. Married, 2 children, income and practice, according to Carter, was average. In person, Dr. Mayhood was a tall, blond man
Dr.
in his
Mayhood.
late 30s. He looked like he needed a week's rest and a few laps.
Day and night. You have an alarm clock around the house, Mrs. Garland? Well, use that. Yes. Goodbye. Yes, sir?
Dr. Mayhood, my name's Johnny Dollar. I'm from Hartford. I represent the Adjustment Bureau handling a claim for worldwide insurance.
Well, what does that mean?
I'm an investigator.
So?
July 14th, 1953, you examined a man I'd like to get some information about.
I hope this won't take too long. Was it an insurance examination?
Yeah. The man's name was James Lansing. Do you happen to remember him?
James Lansing. No, I can't say that I do remember him, Mr. Dollar. What about him?
Well, I'd like to show you the standard examination form first. Is this your signature? Is that your signature, Doctor?
I suppose so, yes. I don't know.
Aren't you sure?
Well, how many people are certain of their signatures? It looks like my signature, Mr. Dollar. I can't say for sure if it is or isn't.
All right, what about these? Are these notations on the form in your handwriting?
I would think so. I don't know. It looks like my handwriting. I can't say.
According to this form, you gave Mr. Lansing a complete physical and pronounced him sound.
That's my job as a doctor on these insurance examinations. Anything unusual about that?
Mr. Lansing died 2 days ago, Doctor.
There's nothing unusual about that either. Did they send you all the way from Hartford so I could tell you to go back there and buy a book on heart disease? You can get them anywhere in the country. The simplest kind. Not even a doctor's book. Read it. Know it. And don't take up my valuable time. Now, let me have that.
Sure.
This patient Lansing was 41 years old. If he had no heart condition when I examined him 2 years ago, and obviously he didn't, according to my findings, it's entirely reasonable to assume that he could have developed heart trouble in a very short while, even the day after I examined him. You people gauge those things in your premiums. Why do you bother me?
Are you finished?
Huh?
I take it you've had yourself a tough day, Doctor, and you don't want to be bothered with anybody. Now, look, I'm not here to bother you. Just from what's on this sheet and what's happened, you're in enough trouble to get yourself involved in a police investigation. I'm here to try to avoid all that, for you as well as me. And please don't lecture me on heart trouble, incidentally. We know the statistics by age, race, color, climate, state, religion, occupation, geographical area, and sex. It so happens we don't have to go into that, Doctor. James Lansing died of malnutrition. I said Lansing died of malnutrition.
I'll be doggone.
Coroner's report. Look for yourself.
Well, he should know.
Now, was it possible for you to overlook that condition at the time you examined Lansing?
If he'd been suffering from malnutrition in any degree, I would have discovered it and noted it.
According to the coroner's findings, James Lansing had been ill several years. The lung and heart condition existed at least 10 years. Can you explain how you were able to pronounce him physically fit, Doctor?
No, I can't.
Well, how about this, the angina condition?
I could have missed that, but it's unlikely with the degree of aggravation noted here on the coroner's report.
Have you had much experience reading chest x-rays, Doctor?
Of course.
The lesions reported by the coroner.
If there'd been any lesions on Lansing's chest, I would have reported them. I can't explain that either.
Well, now you understand why I'm here.
Certainly. I wish I could help you.
You can. Just let me see your file copy of the examination and the x-ray you took at that time.
I'll have my nurse look them up. I don't keep files over a year old up here. We have a place down in the basement.
Okay.
I'll have them for you tomorrow.
What time tomorrow?
As soon as possible.
Like to have them first thing, Doctor.
You're kind of on me, aren't you?
That's right, Doctor. I'm kind of on you.
There'll be another intriguing episode in our story of the Lansing fraud tomorrow.
Tomorrow, $50,000 is a good price for a killing. Most anybody will listen for that kind of money. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by John Dawson, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Be sure and join us tomorrow night, same time and station, for the next exciting episode of Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
December 12th, 1955, yours truly, Johnny Dollar, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We thank you for making us a part of your day. If you like yours truly, Johnny Dollar, our friend Ted at RadioMemories.com has a full outline of classic radio programs, including yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in exceptional audio quality on cassette, CD, or on flash drive for your computer. Visit Ted at RadioMemories.com. Visit my webpage at classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand. You can learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can also find our social media links. You can find places where you can download our podcasts for listening at your leisure on the go. And you can also contact me there, and you can buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee money that we collect at classicradio.stream is used to help us acquire additional classic radio collections and also to help us expand and keep our distribution channels up and running. That's at classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Thank this station. Support their advertisers. Tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.